This is The World According to Jen and Carolyn.
Hello.
Just making sure all the lights are on where they're supposed to be on.
Yeah.
We've got a very complex system.
This is very cool. I can see you in my computer.
Oh, neat. I can see you too. Did you not see me before?
I never could see you before.
So guys, we record using a pod track, like a little interface system, but we also simultaneously record on this Riverface thingy. Riverface. Fuck you, Riverface. And I inadvertently deleted our existing studio last week and got all livid. And just all mad at technology and shit. And so this is a new studio. Anyway, being mad at technology, not technology per se, but tech oligarchs is kind of why we're here today. So full circle moment. I usually am mad at technology. Yeah. It's usually my fault.
I'm not good at technology.
But also weird things happen to me. When I worked at Stanford, you know, my friend Marlis, she's like, she's a tech person. And I'd be like, Marley, this is happening. And she'd come over. She'd be like, immediately like, oh God, this person doesn't know what
Nick
they're doing.
Burns, your company computer guy.
Move. But then she's like, holy shit, I've never seen this before. This is fucking weird.
Yes.
I'm like, yes.
Validation.
Weird things happen to me. It's like I'm a Faraday cage. Like the electricity coming off of all of this just fucks up your technology. It's like I'm a specter.
I just never wanted, like, I remember we had a computer in our classroom in 6th grade and it was like optional to like have computer time. And I was like, why would I want to go do that?
Now they're
take me
everywhere.
Take me to the art table.
Yeah, me and Carolyn.
I've got crafting to do.
I'm going to go to what was it, home ec? Yeah. Go to home ec and learn how to make some custard.
Oh,
that's what I did in 7th grade.
Computer teacher too, Mr. Brillinger.
Oh.
And he had like long tobacco-y fingers with like all this turquoise and a really big gross beard. And he'd
like
sit
L. Ron Hubbard.
He'd sit in his chair while we played Oregon Trail and just like, it was weird.
Like, oh yeah, you died of dysentery, didn't you? Yeah, diphtheria.
He was more dissociatively creepy. I never got a molestery vibe around him. He was more just like creepy.
Interesting.
So that's why I'm not into tech.
It fucked you up for life.
It really did.
We're here to kind of talk about tech. So the name of this episode is O is for oligarchy. So, you know, it's a word that's been popping up a lot lately to describe the Trump administration, and we think it fits. Simply put, an oligarchy is a small group of people having control of a country, organization, or institution. We think the shoe fits. So we're going to break down the elements of an oligarchy as well as try to answer the question, has the U.S. actually always been an oligarchy or at least influenced by oligarchs for over a century, rather? So, you know, we're going to talk about the robber barons, all that stuff. We're going to trace a historical line from, you know, these robber baron assholes to the tech bros.
Heard of that before.
Robber barons? You never heard that
rubber
phrase?
bears? No,
not rubber bears. Robber barons.
Got the gummy bear. I've heard of him.
They're not as tasty as gummy bears.
No, that gummy bear guy was like a weird Paris Hilton friend.
I didn't know that.
Remember him?
No, I never watched any of the
drug overdose or something. Gummy bear. I don't know.
Who knows? I did not.
You
watch...
were not E.
No, I wasn't watching E.
Patty Stanger tried to set him up, and oh no, he was Greasy Bear.
Greasy Bear. That doesn't sound like somebody I want to date.
Very few of us will be understanding this. Thanks, Blanca. You'll know.
She will. She's the one person that gets like all your pop culture references.
Our 4 fans.
So awesome. They're all our best friends.
Yes.
So, Carolyn, before this episode, could you define oligarchy?
What do you think, bitch? I can barely pronounce it. I think I'm like missing. I finally, because of this, I'm pronouncing it right, oligarchy. Because I kept thinking I was missing a syllable and then I was going to sound stupid. So I'd like make a weird pause. I don't know. It feels good in my mouth to say though.
Oligarchy. It is a fun word. It is a fun word. So I knew about it. Again, my background is in political science and all that bullshit. So I had to learn about this. So again, folks, oligarchy refers to a form of governance where power resides with a small influential group of individuals individuals or entities. And several
Rich people.
Yeah, rich people. Several countries exhibit characteristics of oligarchic systems. So we've got Russia, of course. In fact, one of our commenters on TikTok was like, oh, doesn't oligarchy refer to Russia? I'm like, not exclusively, but post-Soviet Russia saw the rise of oligarchs, who are wealthy individuals who gain significant economic and political influence through the privatization of state assets. China, while officially a single-party socialist republic, China's political power is concentrated among a select group of elites within the Communist Party, leading some analysts to describe it as an oligarchic in nature.
Okay.
And then we have Iran. So the Islamic Republic is sometimes described as a clerical oligarchy, where a small group of high-ranking Shia clerics, led by the supreme leader, holds significant influence over the country's legislative, military, and economic affairs. Wasn't the supreme leader the designation given to the main witch on American Horror Story, Coven?
Yeah.
The supreme leader, right? It was Jessica Lange. And then her daughter became the supreme leader.
Okay.
That's a much cooler supreme leader than this.
Hierarchy is like oligarchy.
There's some elements, some crossover there. Yeah. And then we get to the U.S., right? So some commentators and scholars suggest that the U.S. exhibits oligarchic tendencies, particularly concerning the concentration of wealth and political influence among a small elite. I know why I can't see it on my glasses.
I was going to ask you when I pulled mine out. I'm like, she's not wearing hers. Did she do something different?
I'm just going to make this bigger.
Can I get you your glasses?
No, don't worry. I'll survive. But yeah, when I make TikTok videos, I typically don't wear them because it creates a lot of glare.
Yes, it does.
And so, alternating between different mediums got me all fucked up today. So I just made my print larger. I'm like my 83-year-old coworker who you see her phone and you're like, whoa. Yeah, you can't see anymore, can you? Shit. If I'm still moving around. Yeah. Middle age. She's 83. She's double my age.
That's
if I'm still, moving around like that bitch and going to work.
I think you will be.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I hope so. When you're fired up like I am, I think it gives you purpose.
Yeah.
So, we're going to focus on the U.S., obviously. And I wanted to talk about this NPR segment that I ran across, an interview with a Northwestern University political scientist named Professor Jeffrey Winters. So when Donald Trump was sworn in, he was flanked by billionaires Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg. You all saw it. An American government closely aligned with money and power is something that outgoing President Joe Biden warned about in his farewell address. He specifically said, beware of the tech industrial complex. So he said, today an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms. So when asked, what do you see as the biggest risk of a president being closely aligned with the billionaire class, Professor Winters said, it's not the first time. Duh. I mean, one of my messages is that this isn't new. It's only the visibility part is new. It's right there in front of you for all to see. Really, this is a fundamental message. The United States is a vastly more unequal society than it was even 50 years ago. And that's partly because the power of oligarchs has been so great for the last century that the Rand Corporation, for example, estimates that over 50 years, $50 trillion in wealth has been shifted upward to a very small number of people, while people at the average level of society have not benefited, the 1%, right? So by this definition, the U.S. has been an oligarchy, or at least has catered to oligarchs for a very long time.
When did the 1% become a thing?
The first time I remember hearing about the 1%, it was about
2008.
Yeah, probably about 15 years ago.
The housing bubble here. I remember a kid showed up in a Halloween costume. And he was dressed as, he was like, I am the 1%. And I was like, that's a great ass costume.
You know what I think
also,
it was?
You're too young to be dealing with this.
God damn it. It just shows how smart and aware this motherfucker is, even at a young age.
His parents.
Even like my kid and Blanca's kid talking about how Donald Trump hates Mexicans and black people. We're like, you've been listening to us.
You've been listening to your mom and dad.
You've been listening.
Very good.
I think the 1% thing came out on, remember the March on Wall Street?
Yes.
I can't remember specifically what it was called, but yeah, when there was protests on Wall Street.
It's very punk.
Yes, it is. It's dope.
I mean, really, it came out if you're going that far, it would have been in the 80s.
Yeah,
like
for
punk
sure.
rock, right?
Well, the concentration
Damn
of
the
wealth,
man.
yeah, it just was getting, more and more concentrated in the hands of very few.
Yes.
And the 80s was all about hedonism and the acquisition of wealth and greed and that being cool. Just watch Wall Street with Charlie Sheen, y'all. And you'll know exactly what we're talking about. So again, by this definition, the U.S. has always been an oligarchy, or at least has catered to oligarchs. Did I already say that? Oh, it's just been a little more on the DL compared to what we're seeing with the current administration. As Winter said, there have been oligarchs and there's been oligarchic power, but it hasn't been as visible and as agitating to people as it is now. Plus, we have social media too, right?
Yes.
And these actually are the kings of social media. So he said, I wouldn't go so far as to say absolutely unprecedented, but I would say definitely one of the reasons we and the country are talking about this is it is incredibly visible and people are concerned about the impact. So we're going to travel back in time and just like they did on Wayne's World. Yes. So you knew what I was talking about. We're going to talk about the robber barons as they're known. I have no idea what they're called, the robber barons, actually.
Robber barons.
They played a pivotal role in shaping America's industrial landscape during the 19th and 20th centuries, early 20th centuries. You'll definitely recognize some of these names. Some of them are actually buried in Cypress Lawn.
No way.
Yeah, there are a few. None of the ones that I'm going to talk about specifically, but there are a few that are buried
These
there.
are all very namey names in colleges and arts.
Yes.
And
yeah, I went with the biggest names because that's what people are going to recognize. So we have Andrew Carnegie, and he dominated the steel industry. He was one of the wealthiest individuals of his time. He was also an anti-union piece of shit who, despite his public image as a supporter of workers, he was strongly anti-union and promoted policies that weakened labor movements. He supported the use of strike breakers and did not hesitate to crush organized labor efforts in his steel mills. He benefited greatly from government policies that favored big business, like protective tariffs that help steel magnates while hurting consumers. I'm not sure about that word. Like, I know what it is, but
magnates.
Anyway. Yeah. I think it's magnets. Anyway.
I don't know.
I think I'm a moron. Magnets. Then there's James Buchanan Duke, whom the university is named after. He was an industrialist who played a significant role in the tobacco and electrical power industries. He manipulated tobacco prices, using his market dominance to suppress what farmers were paid while increasing profits for his company. He used his immense wealth to influence politicians and shape legislation to be favorable to him and his interests. He had a guy named James Fisk, who was a financier known for his involvement in the railroad development and scandalous financial schemes. Along with his fellow financier, Jay Gould, attempted to corner the U.S. gold market by artificially inflating prices. So really crazy shit, trying to manipulate the market, caused a financial panic in 1869. Crazy shit. Him and his associates controlled parts of New York state government through bribery and manipulation. J.P. Morgan, everybody knows who he is. He was a financier and banker who dominated corporate finance and industrial consolidation. He maintained close ties with politicians, ensuring that laws and policies favored his business interests. He was also a fucking strike breaker who crushed the working class and the people who worked for him. Rockefeller, founder of Standard Oil. He became one of the world's richest individuals. Rockefeller's companies were often accused of mistreating their workers. Low wages, long working hours, and dangerous working conditions were widespread in Standard Oil's refineries and other operations. His financial contributions to politicians, combined with control over significant portions of the economy, led to accusations of corruption and undue influence in the political sphere. So there you have it. These people have been around for a very long time.
All white.
All white,
all
of
men.
Of course. And this goes back to the early to mid 1800s through the early 1900s. So
and I would assume, it makes sense.
Yeah. I think
money and power and politics. And
I think anybody who pays even the slightest bit of attention to what's going on now and what has been going on knows that money and people with wealth play a significant role in politics. Yeah. If you're a politician who is getting a significant sum of money from a corporation or from a particular person, from a political perspective, that person is likely going to be beholden to the interests of that individual and their financial investments.
And even if you think back historically, like nobility and their proximity opportunity to the kings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's good to be the king.
Extreme networking.
Mel Brooks.
I love Mel Brooks.
Me too.
So do you know he's still alive? He's like 98.
I love that. That makes that's going to be so sad. Please don't die. Please don't die.
We need you right now.
Yeah.
So, Carolyn, does the knowledge that money plays a significant role in politics diminish people's trust in the political system?
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes. Exclamation point. Yeah. I think when individuals perceive that, wealthy donors, corporations, special interest groups have disproportionate influence over policymakers, they feel that their voices and votes matter less. You hear this all the time. I think this is probably the most infuriating thing, especially a white person can say is, oh, I don't vote. It doesn't matter anyway. Yeah. So all of this, it's very cynical, I think, for you in government or for anyone who feels like that's just categorically not true. Yeah. It's two sides of that coin. It makes you very cynical, disengaged, and the belief that politicians prioritize financial bankers over the general public. Mm-hmm. I think the lack of transparency and the perception of corruption tend to erode the public confidence more. But the extent of that distrust varies vastly based on the factors of the country's campaign finance laws, media coverage, high profile cases, and political favoritism and scandals. I think that's so popular now. Before, you look at how that changed with media. Yeah. And now social media, and even things come out now there, with AI, you don't know what's real and what's fake. But for the most part, things come out and still nothing happens. But think of every murder mystery or everything. It's all cover-ups. It's all, all these different things that we hear. And so, you can't just blame it on that anymore. And I also think, too, that maybe it does happen locally, but I think the higher up you go, I would assume that the more money you need, so the more you have to do that versus maybe I think there's such a difference between local government.
There absolutely is.
And even state government. But maybe I'm naive.
We see our fair share of scandals at the local level, let me tell you. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people look at running for president, for instance, and think, look at the amount of money you have to have.
Well, the fact that you need money to run for public office.
Yes. And granted, you're asking people to give you money. It's every politician engages in something called call time or candidate who's running for public office, where you're calling people and you're asking them to give you money.
Why? Why do you
need money? Oh, for everything. So I went through, I've mentioned this in previous episodes. I went through the Emerge program, which teaches Democratic women how to run for public office. Kamala went through it, like our previous mayor, like tons of notable women have been through this program. Anyway, think about the signs you see everywhere. Those cost a lot of money.
I don't want the signs though. I don't need them.
I know. Look at the stuff that comes in the mail.
I hate that.
I do not like the mail. It is thousands of dollars.
And I throw it away.
I do too, and I throw it away also because I'm aware. I know who's running. I know what their values are. I know if my values align with their values. I don't need a fucking mailer. Right. To me, it's an environmental fucking disaster. Right. But think about that. And imagine having to travel. If you're running for president, like the amount that you have to spend traveling is insane. But even a local election, the amount that people raise, I was told, because I wanted to run at one point for school board, that I would need to raise $50,000 to $80,000 to be able to run a successful campaign. Now, I don't know if I necessarily buy into that, but that's what I was taught.
See, maybe that's the problem, though.
Staffers. You have people who you can get volunteers, but you want to be able to compensate them. You want to be able to buy them food. Like people who run for public office, for supervisor in this city, oftentimes they'll pay their staffers, which I think is wonderful because they're working incredibly hard. So you're paying your staffers to do work, and you need money, you need contributions for all that. So everything adds up. It's crazy. Money. Shirts, everything.
I mean, I guess that's the heart. It's the naive part about me is like, it just should be about the candidate and their values.
But I agree 100%. Most people don't know how much money goes into campaigns and for what.
Right.
And once you start to break it down, for the most part, it's honorable shit. Right. But you should not need vast sums of money to be able to run, especially in the electronic age.
Well, and isn't that going to price out low-income people?
Sure. But they have to rely more heavily on call time. Like if you don't know people, like wealthy people in your circle who are going to contribute to your campaign. Look, I was able through just you guys. So you have to, when you're going through Emerge, everything is quote unquote free, but you have to raise money. So you're supposed to raise $1,200. I raised that in less than an hour because I called y'all. And I told you what I was doing, and most of you knew what I was doing. And you said, I'll give you $100, Jen. And I called enough people to be able to generate what I needed really quickly.
Yeah.
But that's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Imagine having to do that for hours. I know a guy who is going to be running for a position in San Mateo County. And every day we drop our kids off, or we go to the activities, drop our kid off. And he's like, okay, I got to go do call time. I got to go to call time. I'm like, I'll watch the kids. Like, you go do your call time. And that's, and he's not even going to be running for another 2 or 3 years. Wow. Yeah. It's fucking nuts. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Well, see, there's a lot we don't know.
Let's unpack it.
Yes. Let's unpack. I honor all of this, but I think it also depends on which side of the money you find yourself and your offspring and your ego. Yeah. That seems to have a lot of, this is the part where I wrote this really high. So it's going to be me going, what the fuck did I write? Because I clearly did not edit before I had not practiced.
This is an edit on the fly.
There seems to be a have and have not situation, right? Yeah. So I think we all have our focus on where to find a sense of self, ego, and our values, and how we were all raised has a lot to do with it. And there are pinnacles of power and fame that we all want proximity to. Money gets you access. Money comes with privilege, and maybe sometimes it's just luck, right? But we put our leaders, this is Carolyn's opinion, I think we put our leaders on the same pedestal that we put actors, writers, artists, musicians, people whose talent at least get them that following.
That's why we have a reality star as our president.
Well, and I think we cancel a lot of these people. I think this is where I might be going off on a tangent, but please don't think that I'm saying that people who don't run for office are talented. I'm sitting in front of one of them. Right. We have a lot of friends who do this work. Yeah. But there's this feeling that because it just gets you money. Yeah. It also, again, you can become a really famous actor, but you also have to be talented. Right. People have to buy into that, right? Yeah. I don't think anymore that's as big of a part of it as it should be.
I think there is an absence of intelligence amongst some of the most prominent elected officials that we're seeing and appointed folks in this administration.
Yes.
You didn't earn it.
Yes.
They are... You want to criticize DEI? The people who are in these positions don't have any experience. Right. And that's bad. They
are being rich or in proximity to a yes person. Right. And that's across time. Yeah. Right. That's across time. I'm not saying that's not true, but we cancel a lot of these people, but what about when they are in politics? We don't how do you really cancel someone in politics? Yeah. Having friends in high places has built the fame, fortune, and pop culture icons of white heteronormative males.
Yeah. Well, we do cancel people in politics. Remember what happened to Al Franken?
Oh, yeah.
and it happens from time to time. And I'm not saying it was justified or unjustified, but it happens.
Not as much as it should, though.
I agree.
And I think now we're getting to a point where we're even kind of going, like you and I will talk about this, I really like Michael Jackson's music, but I just can't listen to it now, knowing what I know, but also all these things and so where was I going with that? All right. So when we do not get the transparency, she took an extra puff here, folks. Hold on.
We should just smoke right now.
When we do get the transparency, we are lost in sometimes making the changes that people's attention span can handle after history of shit. Okay. Right. And so we all have to be at the end of the racist fighting and I'm getting really out there. All right, here I go. Yeah. After at what point do we, and I was talking about this today with a group of people, are we at the end of fighting all this racist fucking shit? You and I were talking about this with the Beyonce and Chris Stapleton. Just say you're racist. Just say you don't want a black woman to have this because it's always been white people. I would much rather you just say that because her album was just better. The end. Yeah. But, this is where I get really activated. We're gonna lose the fucking planet the animals and all the beauty that makes life worth living to be a part of Earth in our lifetime. That is not lost on me any day. Right. And all these people are they just missing their sense of awe?
Well, it's just it's just like in that movie, Don't Look Up. I think that movie is really disturbing and brilliant because it's so accurate. Yeah. People are focused on all the wrong shit. Well, not everybody, obviously. There's a lot of us who think like that.
I'm forgetting her name, but I will promise you a post about this because I continue to read her book. But this is her phrase. People's hearts are in such a dark state right now.
Sure.
And I think you and I sit in this place of like super loving and we see the glimmers in the world and we see the good. And it really, really bums me out that there's so much beauty in the simplicity, but we're so distracted by all this money and this power. And it means nothing.
Yeah.
We're going to die and the earth's going to end. This is where I got really high. I sound like fucking American Beauty Lester. I can't remember his last name before, spoiler alert, the racist Nazi dad shoots him in the head because he's a closeted military homophobe. Like, there's just beauty and we're missing it.
I agree.
This is such a waste. And I feel so sad for children who are watching this shit.
I know. We're not setting a great example. Some of us aren't setting a great example for kids.
How many times are we going to let this shit slide? And I just think if we want to get out of the binary, like this is my final thought on this. We have to get out of the binary of even Democrat, Republican. Like this is how 100%. It's supposed to be. I was talking to Mario about this. I'm like, you picture politician and you picture white guy in a suit still, or you picture, woman in a suit. And it's this type of, like, we just have to evolve and like grow the fuck up and just radical reform.
Yeah. The two-party system is reform. I do too. The two-party system is incredibly limiting. Both parties are corrupt as fuck. I tend to gravitate obviously more toward the Democrats, but more toward the progressive Democrats. Yes. And I think the resistance that we see, right? Okay. So Gavin Newsom said some shit about trans folks that neither you or I agree with. At the same time, if he were running for president tomorrow, I think both you and I would vote for him. I know I would. So I have an issue with that. I don't necessarily have an issue.
Now.
I don't know. There are things about him that I like, and I like what he's done for California. But
shapeshifter.
Long story short, it's having to play a game and compromise your values, even when your values are out in the open. Yeah. Like the head of Pride, San Francisco Pride, said, Gavin, we all know your record on LGBTQ stuff. Like, you've always stood behind this community. Even when other Democrats were saying, oh, we don't know if we want to pick this up yet. He was marrying lesbians and gays in City Hall in San Francisco. And he was saying, no, I'm doing this. And now he understands that it was a massive contributing factor, the trans issue. Trans issue. I hate saying it that way. It's diminishing a whole population of people that we love, particularly trans women in sports, which is a fucking stupid thing.
I know.
But he saw how the Republicans contorted that and framed the narrative around the Democrats and made that one of the linchpins. And it, to an extent, cost the Democrats the election. At least that's the popular
All right. No, I see that.
I'm not saying I agree with this. Right now, my husband and I disagree on this. We were like arguing. And he's like, no, you have to be strategic. And I said, no.
Not when it comes to this shit, though.
It's hard. It is because it's like, Bill's like, well, he doesn't really believe that, or we can assume he doesn't believe that based on historical evidence, but do we just get him in? Just like Obama saying, I don't believe in gay marriage, I believe in civil marriage, and then getting in there and being pumped about gay marriage in his second term.
I feel like that's what I hope is happening.
Right.
But the fact that you're even having to do that.
I know.
When there's so many bigger issues.
You're pandering. And this is female trans athletes are less than 1%. Yeah. 1%. And I just read something galling today. Fucking Trump and his bullshit, fake ass State of the Union had two women. One of them in the audience, he said she had a career ending injury. I think it was in high school because of a female trans athlete. Not true. It wasn't true. First of all, the other athlete likely wasn't even trans. Second of all, there's fucking footage of this girl playing other sports after this quote unquote career-ending injury. She went on to keep playing sports. Yeah. So it was a fucking lie.
Yeah.
So this has become this snowball of an issue when in reality, there's not a lot of truth to what's being said. And also the people who are saying it, it's like, you don't fucking watch women's sports. You don't give a fuck about women's sports.
And these are not the big issues that I think should we even be talking about. Healthcare, jobs,
yes,
the planet.
Yes.
Let's get all that.
Yes.
Why are we even talking about this?
Well, this is why I think when people say, or when pundits say, oh, the primary reason why people voted for Trump was because of the economy. I'm like,
no.
Bullshit. They didn't want to vote for a black woman, and they have issues with the trans community, and they are clinging to this narrative that was created by the right about what we, the Democrats, are about. And that's why I wrestle with the strategic side of it and the fuck that. Yeah. These are our values as a people and a party. Yep. And it's the time to stand up because there's an erosion right now.
And it's how you were fucking raised.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's and how you were socialized and what you were and how you have individually come to terms with that.
Right.
And process and internalize that and looked at it or avoided it and continue to do what you were taught.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. And my upbringing was far different than most people, being raised by a lesbian and having two moms. So anyway, I'm going to move us on. And I think I'm going to summarize. Angry rants. I'm going to summarize what you said essentially is kind of like people are almost seduced to an extent by the money.
Yes.
And I think that's why I think there's a lot of people who, yes, are frustrated at the role that money plays in the political system. And at the same time, there's a reason why this piece of shit is our president for the second time, because we've talked about this before. The amount of rap songs in the 90s and the 2000s that talk about Donald Trump as being like some dope, rich motherfucker. It's bullshit. An image.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
But I think people are seduced by it. It's like that movie Idiocracy.
Yes.
You know, it's like, oh, this is somebody who was a minor celebrity. I want the celebrity.
Yes.
This is why Matthew McConaughey needs to run for president. Can we please have Matthew McConaughey's stinky hot ass run for president?
Naked bongo playing out on the front lawn. I'm down with that.
I would be way into that. Anyway, let's move on to the tech oligarchy. So, you know, most of us know that business leaders and corporations associated with big oil, transportation, food production, etc., exert significant political and economic influence. Just look at what the fucking Koch brothers did. You know, they're both dead now, but their influence and their company still exists. So, but let's talk more about our modern oligarchs and what Biden, as I said, referred to as the tech industrial complex in his farewell speech. So the term tech industrial complex refers to the intricate and expanding relationship between major technology companies in various sectors such as the military, government, and economy. This concept draws parallels to the traditional military-industrial complex, highlighting concerns about the concentration of power and influence among a few dominant tech firms. So we know who the major players are, right? So Alphabet Inc., which is Google. Beyond its dominance in search and advertising, Alphabet has ventured into artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, and cloud computing, collaborating with government agencies on various projects. And we have Amazon, obviously. I don't even think I need to say much about them, but they work with the Department of Defense. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently that's what they do. They provide cloud services to numerous government agencies, including the Department of Defense. So that's what they do. So, you know, this incestuous relationship with government exists.
And military.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the government contracts that Elon Musk has and the ones he has given himself since he became the head of Doge.
Yeah.
Meta platforms, Facebook, we know that.
Yeah.
You know, their vast data collection and influence over information dissemination have raised discussions about its power and role within the tech industrial complex. We all know who Mark Zuckerberg is. He was flanking Trump on Inauguration Day. Microsoft, longstanding presence in software and cloud computing. They have contracts with various government entities, including defense departments. It underscores its involvement with this complex. So these companies, collectively referred to as big tech, wield significant influence over technological advancements, economic trends, and policy decisions. Their involvement in sectors like defense has led to increased scrutiny and discussions about the implications of their growing power. So recent developments and concerns. Let's talk about that. So military collaborations. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they've all secured substantial defense contracts, leading to the emergence of a new class of military contractors that blend traditional defense roles with advanced technological capabilities. Super soldiers. Now, this is from Common Dreams. Economic influence. Common Dreams. I've never heard of this publication, but they seem to know their shit.
That sounds like some kind of lube.
Living Spaces. Now Living Spaces is going to sue us. Economic influence. The massive investments by tech giants into AI and other technologies have raised concerns about potential economic bubbles reminiscent of past financial crises. We lived through that. We lived through the dot-com boom. And boom and bust. Political power, the consolidation of power among a few tech billionaires, has led to warnings about the formation of an oligarchy with significant implications for democracy and public policy. That's from Reuters. So, these developments underscore the need for a nuanced understanding of the tech industrial complex and its far-reaching implications on society. But is this far-right leaning in tech new or something that has always been at play? So a lot of folks are like, Silicon Valley, man, it's always been like, cutting edge and new and hip, and they don't care who you are and where you come from. Like, they just care if you have talent.
Nope.
Bullshit. This is from a really cool Guardian article that we found. So in an influential Silicon Valley publication ran a cover story lamenting the pussification of tech. This was in the 90s. A major tech CEO, Lambast, a black civil rights leader, calls for diversifying who called for the diversifying of the tech workforce. Technologists rage against the PC police. No, this isn't Silicon Valley in the age of MAGA. This is 1990s when observers first raised concerns about the right-wing bend of Silicon Valley and the potential for techno-fascism. I love that word.
Yeah.
Despite
I like pussification.
Pussification is pretty good.
I was into that one.
Yes, I want it on a shirt. No, I don't. Despite the industry's often underserved reputation for liberalism, its reactionary foundations were baked in almost from the beginning. As Silicon Valley enters the second Trump administration, the gendered roots of its original reactionary movement offer insight into today's rightward turn. So this writer, Polina Borsuk, called the Valley's worship of male power a little reminiscent of the early celebrants of Eurofascism from the 30s. How many people have compared Elon Musk to the rise of fascism in Nazi Germany? So at the root of this reactionary thinking was a writer and public intellectual named George Gilder. He was a fucking interesting, crazy person. He was one of Silicon Valley's most vocal evangelists. He was a longtime social conservative who brought those politics to Silicon Valley. He was anti-feminist. He wrote books that argued that traditional gender roles needed to be restored, and he blamed social issues such as poverty on the breakdown of the nuclear family.
Shut up, George.
Yeah. He had a 1981 book called Wealth and Poverty, and it became known as the Bible of the Reagan administration. And Reagan began incorporating praise of entrepreneurship into his own speeches. So Silicon Valley in the 90s was part of a broader trend of fighting against political correctness. That is a focus on inclusion and avoiding offense to people who had traditionally been marginalized. So, this is not something new. And the rising techno-fascism, as critics of the time have called it, was temporarily staved off by the dot-com stock market crash of 2000. And George Gilder's reputation was badly damaged after he failed to predict the crash. And you can't just be racist and anti-feminist. You also have to be Nostradamus. You gotta know when the crash is coming. So, and as much of the hype around digital tech was temporarily tempered after hundreds of startups went bust, it came back. We saw it again with Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and others who had absorbed the lessons of the 90s. And at the start of the millennium, they were ready to put their stamp on the future, guided by reactionary dreams of the past. I love that. The Silicon Valley Titans of 2025 are following the same blueprint. You heard fucking Zuckerberg talking on Joe Rogan's podcast about how they needed more masculine energy in tech, and that they need to reinstate it after tech got neutered. And Elon Musk has reshaped Twitter into X. I can't just say X. It's so stupid. A platform in large part operating as a response to claims of woke mind virus, the newest iteration of political correctness. So, let's talk about what the tech industry looks like, right? Just to show you that things have not changed and are not likely to change anytime soon. Women occupy approximately 27% of tech occupations compared to 49% across all industries. In leadership positions, major tech companies, women hold a minority of these roles. For instance, at Amazon, women make up 29% of leadership. At Microsoft, 26%. Racial representation, white people, 52.3%. Asian folks, 22%, and they hold computer and mathematical jobs. Black folks, Black women account for 3% of computing related jobs. Latino folks, 2% of computing related roles. And these statistics, again, they really underscore the ongoing need for initiatives to promote diversity and inclusion within the tech industry. Ironic that you have the industry, or one of the industries that has the least amount of diversity, talking
about diversity,
shitting on diversity. Yeah. They are determined to keep the power concentrated amongst white men. And it's disgusting. So, Carolyn, which one did you go with? You went with...
I went with backlash theory, Jen.
I've never heard of backlash theory.
I had never heard of that either, so I went with that one.
Tell me about how this backlash theory plays into explaining anti-diversity sentiment among certain tech industry professionals.
Got it. So thanks, ChatGPT, for this beginning.
Tell me.
The term backlash theory is commonly associated with Susan, hope I say her name right, Faludi, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and author. She wrote a book in 1991 called Backlash, The Undeclared War Against American Women. Faludi examined the resistance of feminine progress, arguing that societal pushback arises when women make significant gains in equality. I'm going to probably say white women too.
Yeah.
While she popularized the concept of backlash in a gendered context, the broader psychological idea of backlash, how dominant groups react negatively to a perceived threat to their status, aka their ego, and internalized racism.
And their money.
Yep. It's very, very closely tied.
Right.
Maybe their penises. I don't know.
I think so.
And has been explored in social psychology by researchers like Lori Rudman and Peter Glick. I have not heard of them, but like a good scholar, I will check this out because this is very fascinating. So in the context of gender roles and stereotype maintenance. So let's talk a little bit about backlash theory and how it explains anti-diversity sentiment among tech industry professionals. So here we go. Humans still react negatively when they perceive a threat to their status, power, or established norms. In the context of diversity initiatives in tech, backlash often emerges when professionals, particularly from historically dominant groups, feel that efforts to promote inclusivity come at their expense. I think, what is it? White racism, which is not
reverse racism.
Reverse racism.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that. Ugh. Yeah. Which doesn't fucking exist.
No.
I believe there is a direct correlation between the degree of this bias intersectioning with insecurity and being sheltered and being repressed.
Yeah.
I just, that's a me thing. All right. So consider this, if you're listening, and be honest, to what degree is this you, or at least at some time was you? And I can say I have hit many of these and still am processing where this comes from. This breaks down why some people in tech, and I think any industry, but specifically tech, push back against diversity efforts. But I think we're seeing this, like I said, from Target to our own jobs and places of work. Right. So this isn't unique to tech, but the industry's emphasis on logic and quote, culture fit and self-made success can make it particularly strong breeding ground for resistance to diversity initiatives. These people are maybe narcissists. As someone who dated many a tech bro, and I know you can say this too in your own right, it does tend to attract a certain type of on different ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And again, that's any job. But
well, when you I think this industry in particular,
power and money and not having to do very much.
Well, just think about how dominant tech is in our lives and social media in particular, and the people who work for fucking Meta and these big companies that are they're household words.
Yep.
Instagram, Facebook, that's the same company. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, and have you, at the beginning of the year, I took a lot of my apps off my phone, or I at least moved them onto, this is how Pavlovian it is. I had moved my work email off my phone to the third page in a folder.
Oh, okay.
For like a month, when I pick up my phone, I would go to touch where my Gmail was the dock.
Yeah, you're habituated.
Right?
Yeah.
Like gross.
I hear you.
All right, so let me tell you these words. Okay. Meritocracy concerns. What that means is many believe tech rewards skill alone. They see diversity programs as lowering standards, even if that's not true. And even if you just think about that, it's racist.
Right.
Oh, you're going to hire other people. You're lowering your standards.
Right. By virtue of hiring a person of color,
that's a lower standard.
They must not be as competent as me.
Exactly. Like you just basically proved our point by arguing it back.
Right.
All right. So fear of losing status. Some think hiring diverse candidates means fewer chances for them, even though the system has long favored them. Resistance to change. Tech has been dominated by certain groups for a very long time. Changing that can feel unnecessary to those who don't see the existing barriers. If you're white and you've benefited from the privilege, you're probably not going to see a lot till someone points it out to you and you're humble and you have enough humility to see that, and then you can't unsee it.
Right.
Once that's mirrored to you, you cannot unsee it.
Right.
It's everywhere. So if you're still walking around not thinking that tells you something, in my opinion. Online amplification. Anti-diversity ideas spread fast in tech spaces, fueled by figures like James Damore, and they challenge these initiatives. Look him up. It's a very interesting person.
Ooh, yeah.
Zero-sum thinking. I've heard this before. Instead of seeing diversity as adding opportunities like you and I would see, some believes it takes away from those who previously had more access. Again, it's just inherently racist. So how does the perception that diversity initiatives, you mentioned this word, quote unquote, reverse discrimination, influence attitudes toward DEI programs in Silicon Valley? There is no such thing as reverse discrimination.
Right.
Let's say you do discriminate against me, which maybe you could say my subjugated self is a woman.
Right.
I'm still not inherently losing any power for the most part. Like, let's just look at this on a level playing field.
Yeah.
So listen, people of privilege, especially if you are white. I am so sick of this argument because it misrepresents what's actually happening. Discrimination is about systemic power imbalances.
Yes.
And efforts to level the playing field aren't the same as oppressing the historically dominant group. And it's frustrating because it shifts the focus away from the actual real inequalities and makes it seem like it's an effort towards, that effort towards inclusion is unfair to you.
Right.
Which is exactly, like we said, you're proving our point.
Yep.
It assumes that the playing field was truly equal to begin with, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, what are you afraid of? It's like, okay, so one of my favorite comedians is Bill Burr. And he has a podcast and he pushes the envelope just enough, but I love him. And I love where his heart's at. Like he's a good person, but he talks about sports a lot. He loves sports about as much as my and your husband partners. So he talks about, like, you cannot say that Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player because we had segregated leagues at the time. We don't know. Babe Ruth didn't play against any black players or anybody who wasn't white. And so there's no way, if you are just a group of white folks and you're like, we're the fucking best, and you pull up the ladder so that nobody else who doesn't look like you and think like you can come on board, how the fuck do you know you're the best? Like, you don't know you're the best. And you know what? Why wouldn't you, as the owner of a company, for instance, not want to have a diversity of ideas from the best people? And this is why I love Costco. We love Costco. But Costco said recently, they're like, why wouldn't we want diversity? Like all these amazing products that our customers love, they're picked because we have a diversity of people with a diversity of backgrounds who are finding all these dope products. Yeah. Like their products, I don't know what Costco looks like for other folks in other parts of the country.
Apparently they're all different.
San Francisco Costco is fucking tight.
That's why it's fun when you go visit other places to go to their Costco's because they have other shit.
They do have other shit. I know. Costco, we should go.
Can we be our sponsor?
I know. Costco sponsors. We should just get an RV and like go to different Costco's and just like compare the shit.
Fun.
I know.
You would hate that though.
Well,
I gotta walk up and down every aisle.
If they're all as busy as the San Francisco one, but we've recently gone to the Napa one and it's the chillest fucking experience. I was like, oh shit, I don't hate Costco. I just hate our Costco's. So anyway, did you have more to say about this or was that the...
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
So, the tech industrial complex and the robber barons of yesteryear, they share striking similarities, y'all, in their accumulation of wealth, market dominance, and influence over government and society. So here's a comparison across key industries. So let's talk about market dominance and monopoly power. Let's talk about wealth accumulation and economic inequality. Let's talk about influence over government and policy, control over public discourse and information. That's a big one.
Yes.
Labor and automation versus industrial exploitation. So
that's a big one.
I got to break this one down a little more. Tech industrial complex, AI, automation, gig economy platforms have reduced job security, weakened labor protections, and created digital sweatshops. Amazon warehouses, Uber drivers, content moderators in developing countries. Then we also have public backlash and government intervention. So, there's all these data privacy laws and content moderation reforms or increasing calls for these things because shit's crazy right now. We need more regulation. And then, the key difference is the nature of the industry. That's really it. Yeah. The currency isn't the same anymore, right? Like granted, we still need steel and railroads to an extent, or the aviation industry and oil, but there are clear limitations there. With the tech industrial complex, they control digital and data-driven industries where monopolies are harder to break due to the nature of network effects and intellectual property. Yes. It's far more complex.
Yes.
And way more nuanced.
Yes.
And it's a part of our daily lives. Most of us don't take trains anymore, except for your fiance, because he works on one. Yes, exactly. Which is cool. Trains are dope. But, that's not the dominant form of transportation anymore.
It should be.
I know. It's better for the environment.
Well, buses and all this infrastructure. I mean, we're going to have to. What's going to happen when the electrical grid goes away, folks?
It's quite possible.
Going to be riding horses again.
I'm okay with that. Let's do it. So, both the robber barons and the tech industrial complex embody the tension between capitalism's innovation and its exploitative tendencies. While the industries differ, the concentration of wealth, power, and control over markets remains a persistent challenge in both eras. And the most glaring similarity, money and power concentrated to the hands of wealthy white men. That part is clear. So our final thought on this really is that in an era where technology shapes nearly every aspect of our lives, we have to remain vigilant about the immense power concentrated in the hands of a few corporate giants. The tech industrial complex, which is a modern day oligarchy, dictates how we communicate, access information, conduct business, and even engage in democracy. While innovation has brought unprecedented convenience and progress, unchecked influence from these tech behemoths risks eroding privacy, stifling competition, and consolidating control over the digital and economic landscape. History has shown that when power is centralized without accountability, the public always pays the price. Yep. As society becomes increasingly dependent on a handful of companies, it is critical to push for transparency, ethical governance, and regulatory oversight to ensure that technological advancements serve all of us, not just the privileged few. Yeah. Being aware of the tech industrial complex isn't just about recognizing its influence. It's about demanding a future where technology remains a tool for empowerment rather than domination.
Yeah.
That's always the inclination. When a new technology comes onto the scene, it's how do we dominate this so that the revenue, that the wealth associated with this is concentrated only in the hands of a few and is only for the people who can afford it.
Well, and I think we have to resist, take your day off tech break. Mm-hmm. Don't give tech to your children. Mm-hmm. Avoid that as long as you can, unless you absolutely have to.
Right.
Shop local.
Yes.
Shop Black owned.
Yeah.
Shop Etsy if you're you don't need a lot of this stuff.
No, we don't.
It's stuff, and you can't. We're all gonna fucking die. Deal with that reality. And you can't take shit with you.
I think if we confront our materialistic tendencies, for those of us who have the privilege and the luxury of being able to buy things that we don't necessarily need but want. Yeah. I think if we start to confront that and our obsession with things, then we can start to really confront why we place such a high value on celebrity in our culture and why we tend to trust celebrities. Not me, not you, but why we tend to trust celebrities as being like Donald Trump. It's like, there's no way. He's a failed businessman. Yeah. He really is a failed businessman. And he's a minor celebrity from a stupid ass show. Yeah. And people are like, that's the guy.
One weird thing my dad used to always say too is like, if you something that you really need, they're not advertising.
Yeah.
Like anything that's being advertised, you're being sold to.
Right.
People don't buy.
There are some great ads for cheese, though.
For cheese?
And I need cheese. Yeah. I'm like, man, this commercial.
Jen, I'm going to get you a goat.
This commercial's tight. And I'm like, oh, it's a commercial for cheese.
I have not seen any cheese commercials. Am I missing out?
Yeah, they're for California cheese specifically.
Oh, I used to love those.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Anyway.
But for the most part, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, and I think, again, that goes back to this is the capitalist system that we've been brainwashed to think we do need all these things to have happiness and fulfillment. Yeah. No, you don't.
No, we don't. And I think that, right now there's the boycott against Amazon and the big companies like Walmart and Target, and Target's already suffering.
Good.
Target's suffering because us liberals kept Target in business, baby. Because
you lost two of your favorite white ladies.
Right? The right wing, they were always about Walmart.
But you don't need anything at Target either. Go on Marketplace.
I love Target, but I do go on Marketplace. And you guys, I think that's part of it too. If we want to undermine the tech oligarchy, those that are associated with not the production of goods necessarily, but dispensing of goods like Amazon, stop going to them. Yeah. Today I spent more because I have the privilege to do so. I get that on a fucking compost bin at Ace Hardware that had a sign that said San Mateo County stands against hate in the window.
Yay!
Rather than paying half the price on Amazon. Granted, the one on Amazon probably would have been shit quality. But I still, I am in a fortunate position where I can do that. My mom, she still has to shop at Walmart. She doesn't have an economic choice. So we're talking to the people who have an economic choice because we know not everybody does. Yeah. We respect it. I've personally
if you still have
been
to
there.
Work there, I get it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Totally. We're not talking to you. We're talking about people who have a little bit of excess capital to spend on bullshit like me and Carolyn.
I don't need another candle, as Mario says.
No, we don't need more candles. And if we do, we can buy that shit on Etsy or from a small business. I'm going to make some let's go make some fucking candles right now. Apparently there's a new Meghan Markle show. The bitch is making candles.
Terrible.
I heard it's awful.
So bad.
I read a scathing review on MSNBC.
Watching all the TikToks of these funny gay guys making fun of her. It's so bad.
Oh, I love her, but Martha Stewart, she is not.
She basically takes a bag of Trader Joe's peanut butter pretzels and puts them in another plastic bag. And she's like, it's like fucking worse than semi-homemade, but she's not drunk.
I gotta get high and watch this.
This is the stuff I watch because I can't watch the news.
We need some
Love
levity.
Is Blind and Bravo.
No, and don't feel bad if you're watching trash at night because we all need some levity right now.
So good for you.
All right, you guys, take care of yourselves. Follow us on TikTok at TwatJC. We have quite the community there now. Follow us on nobody like goes on Instagram and likes us there. We're there as well. The World According to Jen and Carolyn. Seek us out.
And YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. We got to make a bigger YouTube splash because TikTok could potentially still go away. So we can't put all our eggs in the TikTok basket. So anyway, y'all, we'll see you soon. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Bye.